Hello, everybody, and welcome to number 7 in our Coffee and Chat series. And I'm delighted to have Tracey Zielinski here today. Tracey is beaming in from, is it Queensland, Tracey?
It is.
Yep. So it's 2 p.m. here, 11 a.m. there. And now Tracey is someone that I haven't yet met in person, but I'm very keen to do so. So we have met over the internet in the last few months because Tracey and I have been writing our book together at the same time. And Tracey will certainly tell you all about her book. You can see it sitting there behind her. So Tracey, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed today.
Oh, Heidi, I'm very much looking forward to it. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah, great. So I'd love to hear a little bit about you.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're an author and I know that you're a clinical psychologist.
Yes.
I'd love to know a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Right. So I've been a clinical psychologist now for over 20 years, have my own private practice for 10 years, have worked. So I actually have a PhD in clinical psychology and clinical neuropsychology. So I stopped doing the neuropsychology when COVID hit, and I actually closed my physical practice and started working only via telehealth. Mm-hmm. In that time frame, so over the last couple of years, I have really developed and honed my process of therapy, which is, as you said in your little blurb, basically it's common sense. It's common sense therapy. It's really just something that slots into people's lives. So as I said, when I was, sort of telling you a little bit about it, I just find in this world, it's so complicated. Everything is so complex and everyone just wants to throw more at you.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, let's supersize that. And here, do you want fries with that? And I think everyone's lives are so busy these days that when you are in a place where you're being asked to add more to what you already have, the commitments that you already have, I think people are less likely to do it. So I think there's an awful lot of people that just don't make a lot of progress because they're just feeling overwhelmed. Yeah. And so what I've done is I've come up with a process that I think the most time-consuming commitment that I'm asking of people is 5 times a day, breathe through your eyes once or twice, and let your body relax. So shift into relaxed mode. Breathing through your eyes is my way of doing diaphragmatic breathing, which is, sort of breathing down into your diaphragm. Mm-hmm. And it's a brilliant way of stepping into what I call relax mode. Mm-hmm. So out of distress mode into relax mode. So that's like 10 breaths a day is the maximum, time commitment that I'm asking of people. Mm. And I just think, that in itself is awesome.
Sorry to interrupt, can I just get a little bit more info about what you mean by breathing through your eyes?
Well, of course, you don't actually breathe into your eyes, but and for anyone that's interested, I'm sure Heidi will, put my website up. Anyone that's interested in getting a handout on this, please just make contact through my webpage, and I will email you out a copy so that you can, have your own copy of your breathing through your eyes exercise. And if you're interested in, another handout, I'm happy to provide that as well. So breathing through your eyes. So if you just take a normal breath in through your nose, just, everyone try this right now, just have a normal breath in through your nose and notice that you feel it come into your nostrils and then it just seems to disappear. Mm-hmm. That's what we tend to do when we're not focusing on doing a deeper breath. And so what we're effectively doing is shallow breathing, which is keeping us, not in a particularly relaxed state. Now, take another breath in through your nose, but this time imagine the breath going so far up that it dives out through the top of the bridge of your nose and dives into your eyes. And then down.
Mm.
Can you feel that?
Mm.
So what most people describe is either like a light breeze across their eyes, or some people kind of feel like their eyeballs are being sucked into their head a little bit.
Mm.
And can you feel your body relax when you do that?
It's a great way to think about it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So easy too.
It's so easy. When I used to teach diaphragmatic breathing the traditional way, it's end point. So you've got to work out, how do I get my breath right down to there? And people would take, I think one person in all the years that I taught it got it instantly. And other people would take weeks to get it. Some people just didn't get it at all. This, I have very, very, very few people who don't get this within a breath or two.
Yeah.
And once they do it, it's so simple. And one of the most important things that I ask people to do with this is to actually do the breathing, just a couple of breaths, just relax your body down before you eat.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that, obviously, is that the human digestive system is designed to work optimally when we are at rest, when we're relaxed. And once again, so many people eat when they're in stress mode. They rush their food. They don't pay attention to their food, and they end up with reflux or indigestion quite frequently. So anyone that has chronic levels of stress or anxiety almost invariably has those digestive issues as well. So it's interesting, because everyone that comes to me, I get them to do this, and I get them to do this before they eat. And what that allows for is for you to actually slow things down before you eat. You're in relaxed mode, so your digestive system is going to work optimally, and it's more likely that you will actually enjoy your food more, because you pay more attention to it. So I don't tell people to be mindful, but I do say to them that you may find that, it leads you to be more mindful while you're eating, so that you enjoy your food more, you focus on it more, you're more likely to notice when you've had enough food. And it's just such a simple little way of just getting people back into the moment. So it's a brilliant little exercise that works both to relax you, to bring your body down, but also to create a little bit of time and space for you when you're finding yourself getting reactive. And so we all have moments where we become reactive, and we, start to be ready to snap or to feel anxious or fearful or whatever. And what's happening is we're using a loop, so a reactive loop, so right side of the brain, very primitive. I actually refer to it as like, your bratty 3-year-old, because that's what we do. We tend to react like a bratty 3-year-old. So I get people to imagine a snotty-nosed, red-faced, ugly little 3-year-old that is their reactive selves. And then the cool, calm, collected adult who uses the left frontal lobe, which is our thinking part of the brain. And this part of the brain grows and develops through until our mid-20s. So really, really clever. But slow to turn on, because this is the bit that's in our manual control. So we actually have to activate it. Whereas the reactive loop is an automated process. Yeah. So it just happens, our unconscious system, just snaps it into place, because that's what we've taught it to do. So this is the other, part of my process to a large extent, is teaching people how to step away from that reactivity, step back into control of their own actions and reactions, and hence get it together forever. Simple strategies for dealing with stress, anxiety, and all that life throws at you. And it's the ultimate guide to stepping into control of your own life. So,
yeah, fantastic, Tracey. I've actually ordered your book, and I'm really looking forward to reading it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think so much of what you said earlier is so true, and we see it as well. As a society, we've moved so far away from common sense, not really through anybody's fault, just because we've got so much contradictory, confusing sometimes corrupt information out there in
Yes.
terms of who's driving that information. And people just end up being, on top of their busy lifestyles, they just end up being confused. And a lot of it's just about taking it back to real basics. And that's where the breathing comes in, isn't it? It's just
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And so what I tell people often is that just by taking those couple of breaths, it's as though you're creating time and space around you. You end up sitting in a little oasis of calm amongst the turmoil.
Yeah.
And
so how did you sort of get into this line of work?
Well, that's a good question. I've done quite a few different things over my life, and I actually went to university. Well, after high school, rather than go to university, I joined the post office, which is a very wonderful thing to do, because I guess I just wanted to break from study. 2 years later, I realized, nope, I want to go and do something. And I was actually thinking about going into teaching. Teaching maths and English was my dream. And I did first year at university and realized that I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and maybe maths English teaching wasn't exactly it. And what I really didn't like was not being allowed to be creative. So even in the English classes, it's not about what you can come up with, it's about what you find that other people have found and said about someone else's work. And to me, it's just like, well, can't I have an opinion? Can't I, imagine and create? And so I started to realize a few things about myself. And one was I have a very, very strong value about helping people. So every job that I've ever done has been in a service industry of some description. So I've been a beauty therapist, I've been a bartender, I've been worked in the post office, and periodically, because I was often stuck in jobs where I was asked to problem solve and, clean up messes that were made by other people along the way. So I ended up doing, the stock books and doing the accounts and that sort of stuff. And periodically, I just had to get back out into the counter where I could actually deal with real people. So I started to realize that whatever I did, it had to involve people, and it had to involve helping people. Now I'm very specific about, I want to help people blossom. I want to help people find their best selves and have the best relationship with themselves that they've ever had. And I'm actually very good at doing that for anyone who is interested in stepping up and helping themselves.
Yeah.
Because if they aren't invested in themselves, then there's nothing I can do.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I have no interest in trying when it comes down to it, because I don't like wasting my time. So I like the idea of helping people, and I also like the idea of being creative. And I think what I'm very good at is finding very clever little visualizations to help people grasp concepts that might otherwise be quite complex or difficult.
Like breathing through eyes.
Like breathing through your eyes. And like the bratty 3-year-old versus the collected adult. Yeah. And it's like, it doesn't matter, men, women, it really doesn't matter. They grasp it, they smile, and when they catch themselves stepping into their bratty 3-year-old, it's much easier to step back away again. But also what that allows them to do is recognize other people's bratty 3-year-old. Yes. And you can choose to be the adult in the room rather than just snap back, which is our natural tendency.
Especially when people are stressed, eh?
Exactly. And the thing with stress, of course, is that what we do when we're stressed is we snap. Yeah. So if someone snaps at you and you snap back, well, it's like 2 3-year-olds having a war.
So I mean, who would you say are your typical clients, and what kind of help are they usually looking for?
So I am becoming very particular about the clients that I take on, because I'm only working a couple of days a week. I'm trying to transition towards retirement because I'm getting old. And so now I've written a book, which means that I do need to find the time to market the book, to market the concept, and to get my concept out there, because I do think that it is unique and it can help so many people. And I often tell my clients, my goal for you is for you never to have to see anyone like me ever again.
Yeah.
And so my clients tend to be people who are struggling in the moment, or they have, labels they're putting on themselves about anxiety or stress or depression or what have you, but they have the motivation to step into control. So I don't work very well with people with personality disorders, for example. So borderline personality is, they tend to hate me on sight because I'm too pushy, and I'm very much determined that, if you're going to work with me, you're going to bloody well get in and work, because only by doing that are you going to shift. Yeah, I know that I've got the information that will help you. So it's as though I've stepped back into teacher mode. So my first session with people is pretty much, I give them 10 or 15 minutes to tell me their story briefly, and then I give them the framework and most of the strategies that I'm going to teach them in that first session. So by the second session, a week later, people have already started stepping into control, and they're seeing the results, and their distress levels have shifted.
So would you say that your main role with working with these people is as a teacher?
So psychoeducation is hugely important, the knowledge and how to put that knowledge into play is exactly what I do, is to teach people and to encourage them. So we do get more into a clinical kind of model a little bit later, but initially it's all about psychoeducation. It's all about giving people knowledge.
It's so interesting that, you talked about before that being a teacher was your dream. So you've actually become that teacher, but you've got the scope to be creative, which is what you wanted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So this is my ideal job these days, because everyone is different. So even though I may be going through the same information with each person I see, it's done differently because I'm responding to the person and intuitively, to how they're going to learn best. And I think that's that keeps it fresh for me. But also, a lot of what I've come up with is to try to get a concept through to someone else. And I'll come up with something and I'll go, gee, I like that. And it's fun, it's quirky, I get people smiling, and I get people shifting into a place where they actually have a really, really good relationship with themselves. And that is something that women particularly do tend to struggle with, I think, because we tend to put everyone else first. Yeah. It's not universally women. It's not only women. I mean, there are men out there that do the same thing, but generally speaking, virtually every woman that I see, not everyone, but virtually everyone, has an issue with being responsible for everyone else. Yeah. And putting themselves down the bottom of the pecking order. And my view is, you should be the most important person in your life. Yeah. Because if you don't look after yourself and you don't care for yourself, then you cannot be your best version.
Exactly. We have this conversation with our clients all the time too. We see exactly the same thing with women who are trying to, do everything and care for everybody, and they end up being at the bottom of the heap. And there's a consequence to that, and it's usually with their health. Yes.
Yeah. And once that consequence hits, they're not going to be doing what they're telling themselves they have to do. And so you get even more distress because they're not performing optimally.
Yeah.
They're not doing what they feel they should, and the people that suffer are not just themselves, but also the people closest to them.
Mm. So what would you say is like the most rewarding part of what you do?
Seeing people shift, seeing people, sort of, turn around and say, you know what, I don't think I need to see you anymore. I think I've got everything that I need. And just seeing people blossom, because you do actually see people blossom and step into the best place that they could possibly be. And that is so very, very rewarding.
Yeah, and people really need these tools, because these aren't things that we are generally taught as youngsters, and we kind of have to figure them out as we go through life on our own. And I mean, having someone like you available to people who just need that help is just so valuable.
So that's one of the reasons that I wrote this, is because I'm not going to be around forever. And the message that I have, it really is very simple.
Yeah.
And it's said in a very simple, I guess almost a conversational way.
Yeah.
I got a colleague to read the book, and her comment to me was pretty much along the lines of, as soon as I started reading, I heard your voice.
Yeah. That's the ultimate compliment, because it's obviously a natural, it's come across very naturally.
And that's exactly the style that I chose to write it in, because I want it to be accessible to anyone that reads it. And I will be very interested to hear your feedback when you get your opportunity to do so.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a little bit of I think our books are going to actually complement each other quite well, because we talk a lot about stress as well, and the difference between fight and flight mode and rest, digest and repair mode. And the bratty 3-year-old comes out when you're in fight or flight.
Yes.
And the rational adult comes out when you're in rest, digest and repair. So I'll be so interested to read what you've got to say about all that stuff too. Have you got a part of your job that's difficult?
Probably the one part that I find frustrating at times is when I am dealing with people who are so caught up with their old stories that they are resisting shifting. Whether they feel it's not safe, or whether their stories are just so entrenched. But I'm finding that, because I am being very particular, and it's interesting because the GPs that tend to refer to me are learning, who's going to work with me really well and who's not. Yeah. And because I don't have a lot of patience probably these days for people that aren't interested in helping themselves. Yeah. And I think that is one of the problems in our society, is that we live in a very, with that medical model. If, if I'm not well, give me a pill and fix me. And you cannot fix someone else's emotional state. And even if you give them a pill for it, it only works while they're taking the pill. So my philosophy is, it's a bit like, give a person a fish and they can eat for a day. Teach a person to fish and they can, feed themselves forever. And so that's I guess my philosophy, is teaching people how to just take control and blossom in the chaos, amidst the chaos, because you can always find that moment of calm when you know how to look for it.
Exactly. So what would you say to any woman out there who are listening who may be feeling particularly overwhelmed or stressed? What's a couple of, apart from the breathing through the eyes, which is a great one, have you got any other little tips that they can start to implement?
So there's another handout that I have that I'm happy to share with all of your listeners, is very simply looking at ways of stepping away from sabotage.
Mhm.
So we use language to sabotage ourselves. And I think a lot of people tend to think that your emotional state influences your language and your behavior. And that is certainly true. And what most people don't realize is that the arrows that go between those things actually work both ways. So by changing your behavior, by changing your language, you actually change your emotional state. And so a lot of people will teach you about somewhere between 10 and 50 different thought distortions, cognitive thought distortions that we tend to fall into. I used to hand out a sheet that had 17 different thought distortions. But someone's written a book where she's actually talking about 50. And I just find that a little overwhelming personally.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I've actually looked at those, and I've realized that as far as I'm concerned, there are just 4 that really, really are important and that really, really impact on us. The rest of them, if you control those 4, tend to just resolve themselves.
Yeah.
So I teach people about all or nothing thinking. And all or nothing thinking is the I can't, it's like never, it's always. And if you're at never or always, it's like there's no shift, there's no way to go, because they are absolutes.
Yeah.
So I can't means I cannot. It literally is impossible. And what people don't realize often is that there's a whole continuum of possibility between never and always. And it's the realm of the possible. And there's a little diagram in my book that explains all this beautifully. So what I suggest to people is not shifting I can't to I can, because that may very well be a step too far. But to shift it into the realm of the possible. So if you find yourself saying I can't, what you'll notice is that you just stop. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Shift it to I'm struggling with it. It's difficult. Because what that does is it actually helps us start to problem solve. Because it's no longer impossible, but I actually do need to put some time and thought into this, because obviously it's not easy.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It doesn't have to be easy. Some of our best growth comes from dealing with situations which are difficult. That's how we grow. That's how we learn. And it's the best way of learning is to struggle with something and have to actually work out the details, work out the how and the why. So that's the first one I teach. The second one is labeling, which I think is a special case of all or nothing. And that's when we commit ourselves to a label for either ourselves or our behavior. So I get anxious is a label. And if you tell yourself, for example, I get anxious, every time you feel uncomfortable about something, you're going to go, oh, I'm anxious. But once again, there are situations where it's natural for us to be uncomfortable because we're putting ourselves in a situation which is outside our comfort zone. Right? A job interview, for example. I would challenge anyone to be completely comfortable in a job interview. It's normal. It's a normal human response to find that uncomfortable because it's so important. So is that the same as anxiety? So I sort of suggest to people a rule of thumb, is it normal for people to feel like that? In which case, am I prepared to accept it and deal with it? Or is it abnormal, in which case I'm falling into a trap of, fear of the fear, because that's anxiety is largely fear of the fear and a sense of not being in control. So you can actually put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, for example, and yet still be in control of your own actions and reactions. So labeling basically is any time that we commit ourselves to a behavior, so a habit, generally speaking, and we put it in the present tense. So, oh, I'm depressed, or oh, yes, I always end up getting depressed, or however you want to say it. Oh, that's a terrible habit of mine. I always do that. what happens when you put in the present tense is that it perpetuates into the future. Whereas if you've got strategies, if you actually have learned some strategies to deal, then you can say, oh no, that was my habit.
Yeah.
I used to do that, but now this is what I do instead. So labeling is something that a lot of people struggle with, because we get so used to saying this is who I am, or this is what I do. And it really is, it just shuts down any possibility of change, because no matter how good the strategies you've got, if you keep telling yourself this is what you do, then this will be what you do.
And your brain searches for the evidence of what you're telling yourself, right? So if you're telling yourself that you're depressed, of course your brain is going to search for evidence that you're depressed. It's not going to be open to anything else.
Yeah, and it will perpetuate it, and it will. So yes, the whole system. So the behavior becomes depressed. Oh, I can't be bothered. The body, sort of sinks and slumps. The brain will come up with all these lovely negative thoughts, and everything will spiral down. So yeah, like anytime you put a label on yourself, you're just committing yourself to that habit or behavior. But if you recognize that, you know what, I don't need to be that, because I actually do have these strategies and they work really well, you can step away as soon as you realize I'm labeling. The next one that I talk about is pressure language, which is one that women particularly are really, really good at. Oh, I need to do this. I have to do that. I've got to. And what happens when we do that? Because as you would know, if someone else says, you need to do that, you go, what? You can't tell me what to do. We resist it. We resent it. When we tell ourselves, I have to, once again, we resist it. We resent it. We end up feeling guilty because we don't do it. But we don't question it. So it's like this big chore has just landed on our shoulders. And we tend to avoid it because we don't like the pressure. But we don't question it. So what I suggest to people, once again, is ask yourself one question to start with. Is this something I actually want? Is it going to be useful? And if it's not, then dump it. If it is, then you've got another couple of questions. How important is it, and how urgent is it? So is it a priority, or can it be done down the track sometime when I've got time? So it's bringing it back once again, common sense, but it's recognizing the trap. So once you recognize the trap, I give you very, very simple strategies to step away from it. And the last one I talk about is blaming, which is like, you make me feel so angry, or you make me feel so scared, or whatever. You hurt me when you did that. It's once again giving away responsibility for your own behavior, because you're responsible for my behavior now. Well, that's going to work well, isn't it? Yeah,
it gives all that power away, doesn't it? When you don't take responsibility.
It really does. So what I suggest to people is once you start hearing yourself talking about yourself as me, stop and think about it, because what you've probably done is give away your power. So, you know what? I allowed myself to respond that way. I allowed myself to get angry when you did that. And all of a sudden, I'm taking back responsibility. I'm not saying I didn't do it. I'm saying I allowed myself to do it, because I am the only one who can take responsibility for that. So if I acted like that, then I'm going to own it. And by owning it, it makes it less likely that I'm going to do it next time.
That's great, Tracey. We talk to our clients about, if you're feeling like someone is doing something to you, or they're hurting you, or something's happening that is impacting you, if you don't take responsibility for how you step up and deal with that, then that becomes your fault.
Yeah, really, that's exactly right. So anyone that's really wanting to take ownership of their own actions will step up and put their big girl pants on and go, you know what? Yeah, I fucked up. Can I say
Yeah.
that? Can I say that?
Yes, you can.
Good, excellent. And once you own that, then you can problem solve it.
Yeah.
You know, what do I want to do? Do I choose to do something to rectify the issue, or do I just take the lesson and shift my behavior in the future?
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I will definitely post a link to how our listeners can get hold of that flyer with that information on it, because I think that'll be really useful.
Yeah. Yeah. And anyone that wants to buy the book, I'm still selling it for the pre-release price. So I have a single copy right here.
Yeah.
But I am about to put in my bulk order. So, you know, all your people would be following your journey and, you know the process that we go through. So at this point, it's very close.
Yeah, and I'll post that link as well. Yeah, your bulk order will be arriving very, very shortly. So yep, I'll put that in the link. What's the one thing that you wish every woman could have? If there was just one thing, what would it be?
Well, I have always said, well, not always, since I started teaching people to breathe through the eyes, what I've said, if I could just run around the world teaching every single person just one thing, that would be it, the breathing through the eyes, because I honestly think it is the most powerful tool that in existence. Because if you control your breath, you control your state. Because you control your state, but you have the capacity to step into control of yourself, because it gives you the opportunity to actually start thinking logically, which is too rare.
Yeah, and that, you know, that I totally agree. You know, because if everyone breathed properly, you know, because most of us, well, we all feel our tension in our solar plexus area, right? So when you start breathing deeply, you can't feel tension in that area, because it just calms everything down. Imagine if everyone could just calm down.
Exactly.
We wouldn't have any problems.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, that's exactly it. Step away from the 3-year-old and step into adult mode. So yeah,
that's awesome, Tracey.
Yes,
thank you. Thanks for sharing a bit more about what you do and how you go about it. Yeah, fascinating stuff.
It's
very valuable.
Yes. Well, you can see how passionate I am about what I do. I just think, you know, it's such an important message. So I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into your book as well, because I've had a flick through and I agree. I think, you know, they're going to work really well in tandem.
Yeah, I agree totally. Okay, let's move into some on the spot questions.
Sure.
What's your favorite food?
I probably don't have a favorite food per se, but I do tend to prefer savory to sweet. I am actually quite a good cook. So I love cooking. I love, you know, like roast vegetables. I love chickpeas and lentils and nuts and grains. I've just started experimenting with farro and, you know, other sort of ancient grains, freekeh and, you know, that kind of stuff. So yes, I like, once again, being creative with food. I grow a range of herbs and I'm not a very good gardener, but I try to grow some vegetables and stuff, and
awesome.
You know, pulling your own carrots out and you know, eating them, you know, washing them, eating them. It's fabulous. So yes, I like flavors and food. I like, as I said, to be creative. I rarely follow a recipe from start to finish, except if I am baking a cake or something, because I don't trust myself to actually know what to do with that. So I tend to do exactly what it says.
Awesome. Yeah, no, totally on board with that. Although I'd have to say, I do like sweet stuff, but I totally get what you're saying about, you know, experimenting with all those grains. And obviously for me being plant-based, you know, I've had to go down that track myself, and there's just some amazing creations that you can make.
Absolutely.
So lucky to have all that stuff available. What's your biggest pet peeve?
I think my biggest pet peeve would have to be bloody predictive text.
Oh yeah.
So the number of times, and I know exactly what I'm saying, and I type it in. I know that I've typed it in, and then I send, and I look at it and go, "Oh my God, it's changed it to what?"
I think that's a universal problem. It really is.
Yes.
I was trying to type the word shit today, and it automatically went to shut, and I backspace. No, it's supposed to be shit, and then it went to shot. For God's sake, it was about the fourth time it let me do shit.
Yes, it's very stubborn.
Yeah. Okay, how do you stay healthy apart from pulling carrots out of your garden and making nice creations in the kitchen?
So I do try to get out walking every day. I've got a dog who helps encourage that, and my husband is actually retired, so he's around as well. So we tend to find some nice places, and we live in a beautiful part of the world, so there's always nice places to walk. And we're also lucky enough to have a pool, so as the weather warms up and it stops raining, because we've got rain today and for the rest of the week by the looks of it, I'll be back in the pool as well.
What part of Queensland are you in?
So I live in Redcliffe, which is just to the north of Brisbane.
Oh yeah.
So it's
so beautiful weather.
It is, actually, it is. And we're very lucky. We're on a double block here. So we've got an absolute oasis that we live in, keeping and big hedges and stuff to keep the neighbours out.
Oh, nice. How do you handle your bad days?
I wouldn't actually say I have bad days. We have bad moments, but once again, if you remind yourself that just because I'm having a bad moment here doesn't mean that it has to flavor the rest of the day, because once again, that's almost like labeling.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm just thinking back to probably a few months ago, and I had a couple of frustrating clients, in a row, and I'd come out, after a session, because I always book in at least a half-hour break between my sessions, so that I've got time to get a new cup of tea or go to the loo, whatever, go out and dance on the lawn, or go and with my husband, and I walked out and went, oh. Anyway, I got to the end of the day, and came out and I did a little happy dance, and I went, oh, what a fabulous day I've had. And he went, but what about those really annoying clients you had this morning? And I'm going, annoying clients? Oh yeah. I'm over that.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't hang on to the negative shit, because it only makes you feel bad.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Everything you do. So I'm very reactive to the moment, but I also, because I teach this stuff, I wrote this, so I do this stuff.
Yeah, you've got to walk the talk.
Absolutely. So yeah, no, don't do bad days.
Yeah, good for you. What would you say is your driving force that gets you out of bed in the morning?
I love my bed, and I do, I read in bed, but get up. We've got a nice coffee machine, put the coffee machine on, and come out, and we've just got a lovely backyard, so we spend a lot of time just sitting outside and amongst the green, and it's there's always things to do.
Yeah,
always stuff to do.
Do you think you'll write another book?
I actually had meant to write a different book before this one. I started writing a novel some time ago. And so I've got a draft of the novel, happening, or, notes at least. And I'm thinking that I would like to go back to that. So it won't be for a little while, because I do need to get traction on this. I want to set up some online courses and stuff like that, so that I can step more away from one-on-one therapy and reach more people. with the concept. So that's my next phase of development, is to put those resources together, to learn, teach myself how to put together online courses and all that kind of stuff. And then I think that'll take me good part into next year. And once I've got that sort of rolling along, I am going to get back, and I'm going to actually start writing the novel from scratch, because I was actually just thinking about it the other day, and recognizing that I'm actually going to sort of set it post-COVID, so that I'm going to bring all that into it. And it's going to be awesome. And I've already got in mind the second of the series. So
oh wow, gosh, that's incredible, because going from non-fiction to fiction is it's a very different kettle of fish. But obviously you've got that creative brain, so obviously that's something that maybe comes naturally to you.
Yes, it's something I've wanted to do all my life, and it's taken me many years to get the self-determination and the self-motivation and the belief in myself.
Yeah.
Because like everyone, I've come through a journey as well. So a lot of what my clients experience, I've been there, I've done that. I've written or made the t-shirt or worn the t-shirt or whatever.
And that's why you're now in a position to teach it.
Oh, absolutely. And, I have stepped into the best version of me that I can be. I can honestly say I'm proud of what I've achieved. And I can honestly say I love who I am.
Yeah. It's such a great place to get to. A lot of people probably never get there. But you've done the work, and that's the difference, is that, when you're prepared to do the work and you're prepared to step outside your comfort zone and let go of your limiting beliefs and start to really draw on your strengths, that's when that happens.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
it's not something that just happens. You've got to make it happen.
Yep, that's exactly it. But the thing is, it doesn't have to be difficult.
No, you're right.
It really doesn't have to be difficult. It's actually quite simple when you've got the right tools and the right information.
Absolutely. If you could invite someone to dinner, they can be living or dead, who would it be?
So that's a good question. I could think of quite a few people, but I'm going to give you two names. Elizabeth David. I don't know if you've heard of Elizabeth David. She was around, she was English, and she spent a lot of time around after the First World War, pretty much traveling around Europe, around the Mediterranean, around France, places like that. And she wrote a series of cookbooks and almost like a bit of travel logs as well, to an extent, that really started to revolutionize English cuisine, because she actually brought the sun to England in her food creations. So I think she was a real, she was so independent and, so adventurous for a woman at that time to just run around doing what she did. And I think I've got all her books, and I think she is incredibly inspiring. So she's one. Because I would love to be in the kitchen with her, and just brainstorming. And the other person that I think also completely different, and this comes back to writing, I guess, is Jane Austen, because I've just been rereading some of her stuff, and I love the way that she's such an easy style to read. So you just devour her words. But she always has heroines who step away from the dictates of society and stand up for what they feel and believe. So even though, they're always nice little love stories and whatever, I do think that she is quite an inspiring person, and I love the way she writes. And it's interesting because I'm just in the process of reading George Eliot's Middlemarch, and honestly, it's I've been reading it for weeks now. It feels like months. And I look at it and I go, oh my God, normally I can get through, like 7 novels in a week. But this, I just feel like I'm trudging because the language is so different. And I think there's something like 100, almost 200 footnotes.
Oh, wow. Gosh, that's hard going.
It's like, do I really care enough to open the back of the book to see what she's referring to here? And I mean, she was obviously very, very, very clever. But, having come from reading Jane Austen to reading this, they're set in a similar sort of time. But, oh my goodness, it's just so different. And I'm struggling to actually like her characters as well. So So having someone who I think just has that gift of communicating, I think Jane Austen would be fabulous.
Absolutely, you'd be able to pick her brain for your novel.
Yes, exactly.
Do you have a favorite quote that you live by?
Well, I actually have put this together.
Can you read it to us?
Grant, yes.
Oh, I know the one. I saw the first line and I know exactly which one it is.
Yeah. So grant to us the serenity of mind to accept that which cannot be changed, the courage to change that which can be changed, and the wisdom to know one from the other. So, and I've actually, I know that's a bit hard to see, but I've put it over a picture that I took, a photograph that I took at Monet's garden.
Oh, lovely.
So it's water lilies.
I love that quote. I absolutely love it. It's just so accurate.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think, also really captures my philosophy to life is do as you would be done by.
Yeah, the golden rule. Yeah.
So, but those two, I used to have that sitting in my office, and I'd grab it and show it to people. And I still, it's actually at the bottom of my email is
nice,
that quote. So
yeah, awesome. You can't go wrong with those two.
No.
Any last words of wisdom before we wrap up?
Go buy my book.
Absolutely.
No, I think really, my whole message is about step into the best relationship you can with yourself. Yeah. It's not hard to do, and it makes such a difference, not just to you, but to the people that care about you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess one thing, sorry, I'm cutting you off there.
No, you're good.
One thing that I think is really important is remember that what you feel about yourself is what you reflect out to the universe. And ultimately, what you feel about you and how you treat yourself is what you will get back.
Yeah.
So if you embrace yourself, then and treat yourself with love, with care, and with respect, then you will get that back. And the people that aren't prepared to do that will disappear. But the people that do, your relationships with them will just blossom.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. That's an important point.
It's such good advice. And how can people connect with you, Tracey, if they want to learn more about you and what you do?
So my webpage, which hopefully you'll put.
I'll post. Yep.
Is good because it you can actually send me a message and we can have a conversation. My email, if you want to directly email me, is just Dr. Tracey with an E-Y, Tracey Zielinski. So where am I? There you go.
Yep, I'll put all that up there so people can
Dr. Tracey Zielinski @gmail.com. So please feel free to reach out if anything that I've said inspires you today.
Oh, it's so inspirational. And I just love the whole message that we've just got to get back to basics. And if you're prepared to do the work, it's not hard. It really isn't hard, but you have to be consistent and
exactly
committed.
Yeah. So there's a difference between something being difficult and the effort. You have to put a little bit of effort in, but very, very quickly with that consistency, as you say, it becomes far less effortful. So it's the first step that's the hardest. But once you take that step, you tend to find that, one foot follows the other, and it gets easier and easier, and you eat up the miles.
Yeah. That's so awesome, Tracey. Thank you so much for coming on here and talking to us today, and explaining more about what you do and giving us those little tips as well. I'm definitely going to be taking the breathing through the eyes thing with me, because I think that's just such a great way to explain it. So yeah, thank you so much, and thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you back here same place, same time next week. Bye everyone.